Welcome to another edition of the Sim Racing Garage. I'm Barry Rowland. In this episode, we'll be reviewing the new carbon paddle upgrade kit for Fanatec's advanced paddle modules from the guys at Sim Racing Machines. The APM units originally came with a 2mm thin countersunk carbon paddle, which tended to be a bit flexy and cast doubt on long-term durability. Can these new 3mm thick non-countersunk carbon paddles improve on the APM's feel and durability? Time to put them through the SRG's review process and see how they do. So, let's get to it. Now let's take a closer look at this carbon paddle upgrade kit for your Fanatec APMs from the guys at Sim Racing Machine. Out of the box, it has a nice presentation. It has pre-cut foam here to hold all the different paddles. And of course, that'll keep them from shifting around and shipping. And it has some foam here and that they pack on top of it so it doesn't move around. So let's take one of these GT paddles out and take a look at it. Now the carbon pattern in here is very nice. There's no defects in the carbon pattern, and I've seen those kind of defects come out on some carbon parts that I've pulled out of boxes before. We have the plus sign in here, and of course we'll have the negative sign on the other one. The holes here on this particular paddle are not countersunk. Check both sides there, as they are on the Fanatec one. You can see they have countersunk holes in there. And remember, this is a 2mm paddle versus a 3mm, and we hold them next to each other. I think the difference is a little bit more significant when you do it that way. The impact that you see the difference there, yeah. Definitely rather have this 3mm paddle than that 2mm, especially with the countersunk holes, because that's removing material down there, and that compromises the structural integrity a bit, even though we do have a flathead screw that will fit into that recess and kind of clamp down on it, but still you have removed material here, and you know it's already 2mm thick. And I said that when I did the original APM review, that I thought these are a little bit too thin, and especially when they start taking material off, it makes it a little bit worse than just leaving it like this one here. But this is all about strength on this replacement paddle kit, and that's why they didn't use the countersunk holes here, right? And we're going to be using these button head screws, these little M3 units, to affix these to our APM module that we have over here. Now, let's see if they really are 3mm thick. So let's take a look. Here we are, 2.96 right there. That's close to where that plus was. 3.0 down here, which is typical. You might have a variance of 0.1 or 2 along the surface of a whatever it is, 4mm, 3mm, 5mm, whatever the case may be. And of course, we'll go back and verify what this one is. And this is the Fanatec, and yeah, it's 1.96. So about the same. And again, I would call this a 2 and a 3. But yeah, when I first got these paddles out of the box for the APM module, I did have a little concern about that. But with this, I'm going to feel much better about squeezing my shifters very hard. Sometimes I get excited when I'm driving, and I'll be slapping them pretty hard. And if you look here, that's a little bit thicker on the piece that's stretching out from the shifter itself. See how that difference is there? So it's a bit wider here, which obviously is going to give us even more strength in that section than in this section here, right? Now, all the paddles are included here that are included with your APM module when you get it from Fanatec. We have the F1 paddles over here. We have the clutch or analog paddles down here. And we have the different upper switches, and that's all they are, switches. Depending on if we're running the GT, we'll have the shark fin looking one, and if we're running the F1 paddle, we'll have this Z looking thing over here running. And I'm going to be running this on a GT wheel. Now, there is the shark fin, and remember it has the gold in it, which is a nice look actually on the original APM shifter paddle. But we're going to lose our gold, unfortunately. This shifter here is strong because it's aluminum. I never had any problems with this one because it's aluminum, and it does have the countersunk holes just like the rest of the paddles. And this one is, I believe this is 3mm thick. And it kind of, because of the thickness of it, yeah, you can see that's 3mm thick. It actually have a much different feel to it than when I was using the other paddles, these other paddles on that APM unit, right? So now we're going to have these guys, which are carbon fiber, and these are also obviously 3 mil thick. Let's go ahead and put while we have it out, why not? And that's 304. So now we're going to have a little bit of the same kind of a feel when I'm using my clutch and going between the paddle shifters and the clutch shifters. So it kind of comes together a little bit better for me than the aluminum part, although the aluminum looks good. And of course, you know, Fanatec does a great job when it comes to aesthetics on their products, and that's why we see this kind of thing. But yeah, I'm never worried about the structural integrity of this unit. Right, so what else can we talk about? Let's see what we've got coming with this kit. You got a couple of spacers. These are 3 millimeters thick. They are carbon fiber, and that's for if you need to increase the reach or decrease the reach. You can put it on either side of our APM module here. You can go like this, or we can go like that. And that kind of spaces it out. And that's why we have two different size screws here, these M3 screws. We have an 6 millimeter long M3, and of course cap head just like the other one. And this one here is 12 millimeters long. And that's in case we're going to be using our spacer here. And all that's included, all your screws are included in here. So that's a nice package, I think. It covers just about everything you're ever going to need. And yeah, I don't know what else to talk about here. As far as the paddles, they all seem to be very nicely done. I looked at all of them right out of the box. There was a cosmetic scratch on one of these. Where is it? I think that's it right there. I don't know how well that's going to show up. But there's a little scratch there when I pulled it out of the box. But again, sometimes when manufacturers send something to me, it's not going to be the exact same as they send to a regular consumer that purchases on their site. But yeah, again, a little scratch is not bothering me personally, but I like to show people that the condition of parts as they come out of the box, and you guys make your own mind up. And that's what the SRG is all about, really, letting you guys see as much detail as possible and make your own decision of whether or not you think you want something. Right, now we'll get on to our next segment, where we're going to be taking our new carbon paddles and attaching to our APM modules and see how that goes. Okay, now we'll go ahead and attach our paddles, and I have obviously removed the old ones from this module. I left this one assembled so I can show you how I'm going to do this one. I'm going to keep it just like I have this one done. And that is on the back, if you're looking at it this way, this comes towards you, right? Because that's how we shift. So from the back, I'm going to mount my shark fin or surfboard fin paddle there, and the GT will go on the front, and the clutch will go on the back. And the reason I'm doing that is because, well, it's already set up that way, and I've been using it that way, and it's comfortable to me. Now, I have this set on the back. You can actually put this one, the shark fin, on the front too, depending on what you want to do. Some people like it back here, and I tried it both ways, and it works fine both ways. And usually how I use that button anyway is I'm using my thumb against the shifter paddle and using my index finger back here and just kind of pinching to make that work, right? And if it's on this side, you can still do it. It's a little bit more of a reach around if I mounted it on the front. So again, it's all subjective and personal preference at that point. All right, let's go ahead and get these things mounted. I'm going to go ahead and put my fin on first. I call it the fin paddle, and that's going to go on the back. You have to remember which way's front and which way's back. So I'll turn this around. And again, we're going to use these 6 millimeter long M3 screws with a little socket. Not socket, but button head. M2. That's an M2. We have our M2 wrench handy here, ready to go. Typically, I'll try to put it on my wrench first, preload the hole, and then go over and attach it. And these magnets on here on the back of these modules do have a tendency to grab things, so be mindful of that. You'll grab your wrench when you're trying to screw something on like that. Just adds to the fun, right? Again, when you're attaching these screws and screwing them in, be careful. You just want to snug them up, and if you get any resistance when you first start, you want to stop what you're doing, because you don't want to strip these puppies out, because that'll ruin your day, I think. So now we're going to put the GT paddle on, and that's going on the front part, not the back, but the front. And that again will give me that same spacing I had before. 2 more of these 6 mil long M3 screws. Go ahead and preload one of them. And then again, kind of feel my way into the threads when it first starts. And yeah, if it gets snug, I'll kind of back off like it did. It felt a little snug on that one. So I'm going to be very careful here. I can fix these threads because I have taps, but why do it if you don't have to? So that went in easier the second time. And again, just kind of get a better angle on it maybe, or move your, the way you're holding things, and sometimes that'll let the screw go in a little easier. All right, so we'll go ahead and snug these up. Again, not over tightening them. And the clutch pedal can go on again. Doesn't matter if it's front or back. I had mine on the back before, so I'm just going to keep everything the same. Even though with 1 millimeter thicker on these paddles, it's going to put things back a little bit further as far as my reach, but I'm obviously not going to be able to notice 1 millimeter, I don't think. I wouldn't think. All right, so we'll go ahead and put these last two in. And there we go. One more, and we'll be done. See how this is all lining up here. All right, snug it up a little. And once you use these a little bit, you might want to go back and put a wrench back on these and tighten them up a little again, because sometimes, just from use, things will get just a little bit looser because you're just using it as new stuff. So there we have it. And there's the clutch. And you can see the clutch is clearing our shifter very nicely. It was close, isn't it? Close, but right on it. I like that. And the shifter, yeah, all this stuff. Yeah, it's not mounted on the wheel. It's really going to make a difference as far as the tactile feedback that you get from these shifters. Whereas when you compare it to like this 2 millimeter thick shifter, especially the GT because it's so big. Yeah, this is going to feel good already. I can tell this is definitely a great improvement. And because it's all carbon now, it's all the same texture if you're not wearing a glove when you're racing and using your shifters. Yeah, I like this. All we have to do is attach the paddles to this one and we'll be done. Now I have the carbon paddle upgrade kit attached to both APM modules. And yeah, I like it. As you might imagine, going from a 3 mil from the 2 mil is a noticeable improvement. Not only in feel, which is the most important thing because we're analog beings and feel is everything to us, but also in visual, we can see a difference. And that is, and I've got my F1 wheel over here. It also has the APMs on it, but I took off the F1 paddles and put the GT paddles on just so I could test it. Obviously, I wouldn't run this wheel with these paddles like this, but if I pull down on this one, now remember, these are aluminum levers in the shifter housings themselves, so they're not going to bend, and they are bumping up against those rubber, I call them sound dampeners. Yeah, if you watch this, let's see if I can get a good angle of it there. If I pull down on it and go ahead and push the lever, the aluminum lever against the housing so it won't bend, and I'm actually pulling on that shifter. See that flex in there? Because, yeah, 2 mil is just not enough. And, of course, it's sitting further out. You don't get the same flex in the 2 millimeter F1 paddles because it's not big like this. But I wanted to do apples to apples comparison, and that would be with the ones that I'm putting on here. So, yeah, we got some flex on this. And of course, you can feel it more than you can see it. And here, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to go ahead and bottom out the aluminum part on the lever, and then I'm going to pull hard down it right there. Okay, I'm pulling hard. You might be able to see a little bit of movement there. I'm going to hurt my finger here. But yeah, it's a total, as you can see, it's really not going to bend anywhere. And I can't feel it. I can't feel that flex in there if there is any. And I really don't. I have to look at the video and see if I could see any. But yeah, this is great. Feels much better to me personally. Of course, that's subjective than the thin ones here. Now, the cool thing was when I was I noticed, and I should have thought of this before, is that number one, all the new APMs kits coming out have 3 millimeter paddles on them. All right, I verified that with Fanatec, and I was waiting to verify that before I said it on the video. But I already heard from people that they were. So when I initially did the review on these APMs, if you go back and look at it, you'll notice that I didn't think these were automotive quality shifters, or the paddles rather, not the shifters. And that's because they were so thin. Also, there was a concern with the little counter bevel that they put in there, the countersunk holes, taking more material off. I just was not too happy about that, or I wasn't too impressed by what they did there. But now they've listened. And they've actually gone to the 3 millimeter. Either that or people have been breaking them. And I know a couple of people that have broke them, but I don't know what the circumstances of that were. But I know there's a couple of people that have actually broken them. But yeah, now they've gone to the 3 mil, which I think is a great move on Fanatec's part, and I applaud them for doing that. it's great that they're willing to listen to the community and upgrade their stuff to keep things from bending and what have you, right? So anyway, I can take these paddles now. Because of this kit, I've got the F1 paddles left over. I got the actual shifter paddle, and I've got the, where's that little Z looking thing here for the button or the switch on the back. So I can actually still put these on here. Now, the only issues you're going to run into if you have, like me, two sets of APMs, one for your F1 and one for your GT type wheel, is he only puts enough of the 6mm long M3 screws that we see here, these little button head pieces, to attach all of this. All right, so we got 2, 4, 6, right? So we got 12 total of these, and these long ones, and we don't have 12 of the long ones either. So even though they would work, but they would stick out and they wouldn't interfere with anything, because I already checked that, you need to go ahead and get some more. Now, I have a bunch of these things laying around. These are just like what's on there already that he puts in the kit, and these are the M3 6mm long button heads. And I got a whole batch of these things from all my hobby stuff that I do, so I have plenty of these laying around. So that is going to enable me to mount these 3mm paddles to my F1 wheel. And I'm pretty stoked about that because, yeah, just one kit will cover 2 wheels. Except, again, we are going to have to keep the aluminums, which I don't have a problem with these aluminum ones. You know, the gold, you know, take it or leave it kind of thing. But, I mean, they get the job done well. I really can't complain about that. And they're 3mm thick and they're metal. So, but, yeah, I kind of like the look of all carbon. And that would not make me buy another one of these kits, though, to replace these. So, yeah, I'm going to upgrade this APM unit, or both of these APM units, with the 3mm because I can do that. And that's going to be great. So I'm killing 2 birds with 1 stone kind of thing. So yeah, this is great. And now all I have to do is put this on our wheelbase and do some driving. And yeah, we'll talk about what the results are there. So we're at Sebring and iRacing at the 488 GT Ferrari. And you can see I'm doing some downshifting here. And this is something that's really not very easy to convey to someone watching a video, the changes or the differences between these paddles. But I think you guys can probably get a pretty good idea of what's going on here. It's an immediate noticeable improvement over the 2mm paddles. Hands down, you know, just much better experience. It gives you more tactile feedback, which is more immersive than having flex in the paddles when you're pulling against the shifters. And of course, you would not have that in a real car. They have thick paddles because they don't want them to break during a race. That would be bad. So, yeah, it's like I said, it's just an immediate difference. And not only that, but it allows the advanced paddle modules to deliver the best feeling they can. Of course, unless you pull out the rubber dampers, which I have done on some of the shifters and I personally prefer, but that's another video. So, yeah, with the damper still installed, it gives you the best feeling you're ever going to get out of the APMs during the shifting. And not just the shifting, but when I use the little button levers on the top and when I'm using the clutches, well, the clutches, to be honest, there's no difference. There is a difference in the texture, but there's no difference in the feel because their clutch paddles are already, you know, aluminum 3mm thick, and their stiff is carbon at that thickness and that size. So yeah, really no difference there except for the feel and that'd be the texture on the paddle itself. But yeah, overall, this is such a big improvement. It makes me more inclined to pick up my Fanatec wheel and wheelbase when I want to test something, because now it feels like it should feel a proper shifter, clutch, and whatever that extra button they like to put in there. It just feels much better and like something I would want to use instead of the 2mm. So yeah, I guess that's about it. And we'll just go ahead and get to the final thoughts. Final thoughts on the Fanatec APM Carbon Paddle Upgrade Kit from Sim Racing Machines. This kit gives you the ability to get some good carbon paddles mounted to your APM units. My kit was the complete kit that has all the paddles for the GT and F1 modes of the APMs. They are a solid 3mm thick with no countersunk holes. Of course, most already know that the original APM paddles that Fanatec shipped were only 2mm thick and had countersunk screw holes, which removed even more material from an already, in my opinion, too thin paddle design. I stated this in my review of the Fanatec APM modules a few months back. Now, the newest APM units shipping from Fanatec have a 3mm thick paddle on them, but that doesn't help the people who have the older 2mm paddles. SRM now gives us an upgrade path that will give your APM shifters a newfound solid tactile feel you can't get from the original 2mm paddles. When driving with the new SRM paddles attached, the difference is immediately noticed. Gone is the soft, flexy feel of the original paddles. In its stead is now a much more solid-feeling shifter, which also gives the driver better tactile feedback when shifting or actioning the other paddles available on these APM units. Now, the analog paddles also feel different from the original aluminum paddles, but they already felt pretty solid, so only the texture of those paddles have changed. If you have the older version of the APM units from Fanatec, this new 3mm carbon paddle kit from Sim Racing Machines would be on the top of my list of ways to improve the overall feel of the original advanced paddle modules from Fanatec. I'm Barry Rowland. Thanks again for watching the Sim Racing Garage channel. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button. And if you would like to help support what I do here at the SRG, visit my website at simracinggarage.com.